The next presentation is from South Harz Potash with the ticker code SHP. The company is focused on responsible potash mining in Germany. So to tell you more, I will hand you over to Managing Director, Chris Gilchrist.
Good morning to you in Australia, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Chris Gilchrist. I'm CEO of ASX listed South Harz Potash Limited, and I'm speaking to you this morning from the Emerald Isle of Ireland. Right, let me introduce you to South Harz Potash. We bought 3 mining licenses from the German government in 2017, which are located in the former East Germany. They were granted to the East German State Mining Company prior to German reunification in the 1990s, but they were never mined. They're unique because they're perpetual in nature. In other words, they are ours forever. They carry no rentals or development commitments, and they're completely royalty-free. Using the results of an extensive 300-hole exploration program conducted by the former GDR State Mining Company as recently as the 1980s, the results of which we own and would have cost over $500 million today, we've established a total resource of 5.3 billion tonnes at the JORC inferred level. Historically, 182 million tonnes of potash were extracted from this basin using simple and well-established mining and processing techniques. The board of management comprises a wide range of appropriate financial and technical skills. 4 of our directors, including the chairman, are based in Europe, while Rory Luff and Len Jubber, many of you will know them already, they're based in Australia. The importance of having potash experience on the board is paramount, and I'll touch on this a little bit later. In terms of our corporate snapshot, we have a market cap of about $55 million. The current price is 13 cents. We enjoy terrific support here in Australia from Euroz Hartleys, particularly from David Michael on sales and from Reece Simpson on the corporate side. In the past 10 months, our market cap has risen from 8 million to its current level, which is remarkable given that we haven't yet got going with the good news machine. So if we move to slide 6, let me share with you where the good news is going to come from. We are simply Western Europe's most significant potash deposit with, as I said earlier, an inferred resource of 5.3 billion tonnes containing 567 million tonnes of potassium oxide equivalent, which equates to about 900 million tonnes of potash. We've got completely unencumbered licenses under our control, and that's because they were granted to the former state mining company under the former communist GDR regime. And we believe with another 7 or 8 drill holes, we can convert much of this to a measured and indicated resource. So a very, very cheap exploration program indeed. The area has actually been mined for potash and salt for over 100 years. It's got an average potash mineralization of about 6 meters in thickness, and which reaches over 20 meters in places. It starts at about 450 meters in depth. It's got consistent geology, and there is no history in the region of mine collapse or flooding. The assets are surrounded by existing infrastructure, and they're situated in a safe jurisdiction close to a European market where there's a widening gap between demand and production. It's a good thing for us that BHP finally decided that market conditions were ripe for further investment in their Jansen project. Our resources are similar in size, however, BHP are blessed with an exceptional grade, as most Canadian operators are. Nevertheless, we don't consider them a threat to our aspirations in Europe. By the time they reach full production of 4.3 million tonnes by 2033, the world market will be 90 million tonnes, of which they will command only 5%. As their recent presentation confirms, this will be targeted at the expanding markets in both Brazil and in China. Just a few more words about the obvious benefits of our location. We're also fortunate to have global potash expert consultants, Urkusplan and KUTEC, in the region both of whom we are currently using, and we will continue to do so. So we've got the best potash consultants on the planet right on our doorstep. And once again, returning to my point about competition, there's an old adage that says salt doesn't travel. Potash is a relatively low-cost bulk commodity, which is ideally situated close to market. While they are low-cost mine gate producers, the delivered cost of Canadian and Russian potash to the European market is mostly uneconomic due to long logistic distances, high freight costs, EU tariffs on Russian producers, and of course, sanctions on Belarus. Furthermore, one has to consider nowadays the carbon cost of potash production and logistics, and this will become increasingly important in future. So it's best to have potash right in the heart of where your customer base lies, which is in South Harz case, that's what we've got. We will, of course, be producing the most common form of potash, which is MOP. Most of you in Australia are probably more familiar with SOP, potassium sulfate, which is a much smaller and more fragile market and more complicated to produce. MOP represents 92% of the world market in terms of potash sold. It's a large, well-controlled and robust market. Demand for MOP is growing at about 3% year on year. And as I said earlier, Europe will need a new supplier in due course to replace depleted European production. Prices are currently spiraling upwards at the moment, in line with significant increases in post-COVID crop prices. However, after a spike of about $500 per ton next year, it's forecast to settle back to the $350 to $400 mark. However, our previous unannounceable scoping studies were conducted at a price of $250. So I expect our next iteration of scoping study to be pretty exciting. Well, we're still a company in its infancy. We've already announced an ESG policy, and we're commencing the construction of an ESG management system. The entire ESG ethos is going to be woven into our feasibility studies, our management control systems, and beyond. And it won't be long before a bag of fertilizer has to be stamped with the kilograms of carbon that were associated with its manufacture and with its delivery. So our starter project is at an area known as Omgeberge, where we've got 42 million tons of resource of mineable thickness, average 5 to 6 meters, and a relatively shallow depth. We expect a low capex here because of the proximity of existing infrastructure and the availability of derelict industrial land from former mining, which will facilitate permitting. We're within 300 meters of the development tunneling from a former potash mine, from where we'll be able to extract bulk samples for test work. We're also surrounded by 27 million cubic meters of mine voidage in former mines that needs backfilling with our tailings to arrest subsidence from previous mine workings. And of course, if you have a tailings solution in Europe, then your chances of permitting in a reasonably quick time are certainly enhanced. We need to drill out only 2 holes at Omgeberge to elevate the JORC status of the resource. During the year, we secured landowner and tenant permission to drill on their lands, a task which was actually made more difficult by COVID restrictions on travel, but we got there in the end. We've submitted the application for drilling permission to the German authorities. The first permit is expected very shortly indeed, hopefully by the end of this month. We've appointed a high-quality German drilling company with potash experience, despite fierce competition in Europe for drillers now that things are opening up. And we've appointed several parties to commence building the scoping study, looking at resource modeling, mining, processing, CapEx, OpEx estimates, financial modeling, marketing, and ESG. This scoping study will be conducted with a bit more rigor than normal, and it will be completed in the first few months of 2022. So what about the 3 remaining project areas? I said earlier, we've got 3 mining licenses in which we've identified 4 potential projects. Well, we intend to sequentially go down the same path with each of them, like taxis waiting to leave the rank or planes waiting to take off. Because the fact we've got perpetual resources, we've got no timeline constraints. We can launch new projects one by one as the market demands, and we could easily, with our resources, become a 5 to 6 million ton per annum producer. So in summary, why is South Harz Potash a compelling investment? We've first of all got large resources in a historic mining area where the geology, the mineralogy, mining and processing are well known and documented and can only benefit from modern and more efficient extraction techniques. Our tenure on the resources is cast iron, perpetual and royalty free, which is unique. 97% of the exploration we need to reach M&I resources across the whole belt is already done. We've got world-class geological mining and processing consultants, and we also know those deposits very well. We're located in a 5-star jurisdiction. We've got potash mine and construction experience on the board and within management. The market is growing rapidly and prices are rising. So with all of this in our favor, rather ask, why shouldn't I invest? Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your attention.
Chris, thanks for the great presentation. We've had a few questions come through, so let me jump into it. I know you did mention this through the presentation, but just in case someone did miss it, when do you anticipate further exploration to commence across the project?
We intend to drill 2 holes at first of our mining license areas, Omgeberge. The first hole will be drilled this year. Once we achieve our permit, which we believe is imminent, we will commence drilling immediately. Everything else is set up and ready to go. So we hope to have that hole drilled this year, and we will drill the second hole early next year and release the scoping study once we have an indicated resource, which is required under ASX regulations. We would then look at drilling and conducting similar scoping studies in the other areas in years to come as the market demands.
So quite a fair bit of news flow coming up. Very exciting times.
Very exciting, and we've had little news flow for the past couple of years. However, we anticipate quite a significant stream of news flow as we drill out the areas, as we sequentially launch scoping studies, and Omgeberge will go into a feasibility study during next year. So there's going to be a significant uptake in the amount of news flow from this company, which is very exciting.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for joining us today. We're looking forward to it. And a copy of today's recording will be available online in the coming days. But thanks again.
Thank you.